You were in an old-fashioned pub. Every pub in this town, you didn't dress that pub up to look like that.
And the problem was there was 50% fees out of what was earned, and the other expenses came out the other 50%.
If you look at the independent scene in the States, they don't care about any of that.
In the room, 52 Jokers Wild.
So welcome, folks, to another episode of In the Room with Garvin and George. It's a Friday again, and this week our guest is Pauric Brennan of Bren Enterprise Films, who's made a feature film recently called Don't Sell Me a Dog. And again, like always, we probably won't get chatting about that, but we'll be talking about the ins and outs of how he may have gone around making it, which I think should be fun. So welcome to the show, Pauric. How's it going? And tell us a little bit about the film anyway, just before we do get going, and then we'll go off to something else. It's a horror story, we believe, is it?
No.
Not at all.
No, we've got the wrong genre already.
It's a crime thriller, road movie about two drug addicts that rob their boss of his cash and his drugs in the hope of starting a new life. And they try to hijack an OIP car. But Joe, the old guy in the car, you're not having it. End of story. Not taking the car. So they end up embarking on this mad road trip, and they start to bond. Well, two of the characters start to bond. But they all have lies. They all have secrets, and some secrets are bigger than the other. And you have to watch the film to see who has the biggest secrets. So,
George, I started watching last night. Now, I told Pauric I'd watch it. I see we were Skyping back and forth or writing back and forth. I think it's 1 a.m. I think men come alive about 1:30 in the morning when they wake up on the sofa from watching sort of back-to-back Netflix. And then I said, look, I have to do my homework. George says, do your homework. Would you, for God's sake, at least watch the film? The first line out of George's mouth is the wrong genre. So we know he didn't watch the film. No, I actually got 5 minutes into it. No, I'll tell you, it was terrible because I found the link. I think it was Vimeo and Plex. Yes. And one of them was looking for $1 off me. I said, affect that. I don't think he's worth $1 just yet. I'll go to, I think it's Plex might have been, I'll have to watch a couple of ads. Yeah. But I mean, I'm doing this on my phone at about 1:30 in the morning last night. And I got into the old lad and the start of the journey and the girl and the guy and the drug lord and all the rest of it. I says, right, I'm getting into this. But I forgot it was 1:45 in the morning. And that's it. I was asleep in 5 minutes. Nothing to do with the film. So I have to go back to it. So I'm just warning you now, neither of us have done the research. We haven't watched the film.
But the version that Garvin actually got to see, the version that Garvin got to see was more weird than your version, I'm sure. Yeah.
So I'm thinking to myself, that was a horror. No, that wasn't a horror. No. So it started off well, and I have every intention.
I think it's just the horror of a day that we had yesterday. That was all.
No, we were still getting over yesterday in shock. Actually, Pauric, we're looking at you, and I'm going, I wouldn't be expecting the crime thriller. I would have been expecting the Sons of Anarchy. You're going, why not the Sons of Anarchy in Kildare?
God, how do you answer that? A few years ago, I did write that. I wrote that whole crime series TV about a biker gang in Ireland with undercover cops and everything. And I pitched it to a certain TV station. And the reply I got was, sorry, but you're about 6 months too late. We have something starting this September. And that became a phenomenal hit. What started that September?
Was that Love Hate or something else, sir?
Yes, it was.
Oh, I hate to love and I love to hate. But the great thing was you got a nice, that was a very nice PFO. Yes. That was, but Jesus now, had you have only come here last week, it would have been you. So it wasn't a no, it was just maybe next time.
Yeah, you missed the boat.
Yeah. Now, where you actually was, the strange thing was an awful lot of us had the right story, the right time. We were mulling it over 9 drafts in. Did you actually have it the previous year? And you just didn't get the pitch in time.
Can I just answer something there just beforehand? Because I wrote a film about The Spy That Lies With Me, and it was about a guy that worked in a supermarket, Sainsbury's, and how it turned out his family were spies. And this girl comes in who's a spy that needs his help. And it turns out all kinds of crazy stuff. The Northern Ireland Screen turned it down. And the next thing came out was an American TV series that ran for about 3 series called Chuck. That was that story. So, sorry, I'll let you carry on there.
Well, yeah, to answer what Garvin was saying, yes, I had written that, I think, the previous year. And we had done a teaser for it. If I remember correctly, we put it into the Kildare Film Bursary that year, and we got shortlisted and whatnot. So yeah, I had that a while, and I had spent time in a bike club in a previous life. So
no, you'd never know. Not at all. No, there'd be no belief in that one.
No, okay. I won't.
Now the question is it a Honda 50? Or are we talking some mother load of a Harley D Generation X something?
You're talking proper club life. I love Sons of Anarchy. To go back to what you were asking, I really enjoyed it. It was a great series.
Very good. Yeah.
But it wasn't really, really true to life. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? There's a great book by a guy called Jay Dobbins. He was an undercover ATF agent, and he gives you what it's like in the clubs. Yeah. You know, and that's what we called our one under was the name of our series, and we tried to be real to it. Now, my business partner at the time, his sister is a cop, so we had that side of the world from her. And we kept it as real as we could with their side. And then from my experience, we had all the bike world side and from people I knew or contacts I had. So we tried to keep it. And then obviously all the research we did into the bigger clubs around the world and the motor gangs in Asia and that. So
now there's a gang culture, but the weird thing is, I know nothing about this at all. But the little bit of interaction I had with it was I had the perception, mother God, this is crime lords on wheels. But when I was somewhere and a bunch of them pulled in for double chocolate chip muffin in our coffee shop. And what pulled down the road was Ferraris on 2 wheels pulling in. And every second person was a neurosurgeon this, dentist that, and hello. Yep. There wasn't a crime lord or drug lord among them. I was very disappointed and very relieved at the same time.
My cousin's turning up at 12:30 on his bike, but they've travelled over from England and his wife, and they're touring around going to see their son, and they've been using bikes for ever since I can remember. That's part of the family sort of tradition. My son now has a cafe racer that he made out of a Kawasaki 600 of some nature, and he's going around Canada on that now, meeting up with people, and it's helping him with his psychology. You know, getting him out, getting him to meet people, getting him to socialise. And chatting with all these other guys that have modified their bikes. So I'm planning to get a bike at some point. So I'm going to get back to it.
So you've done the Son of Anarchy. You had that story, but love or hate robbed it off. Yep. Yeah, we'll have to go out, get to sue them later. I'm sure one of your fellow riders is a lawyer, solicitor, barrister type anyway. So we'll get back to that one. And we're back to Don't Sell Me a Dog. And there's always a doggy in the window having a little smile and barking at you. But I'm sure there's nothing to do with that. We know there's a dog could be anything. And normally it's, it could be a dog of a car, a dog of a house. Don't sell me a pup or don't sell me a dog. Is there, no, because we didn't watch the film and didn't do our homework, what does Don't Sell Me a Dog actually mean in this connotation?
Right. So Don't Sell Me a Dog is Victorian slang for don't tell me lies. What used to go on in Victorian times was you'd have these guys selling mutts as pedigree show dogs. So that's where the phrase comes from. And that's, as I said earlier, that's what the film is about. It's filled with lies and double truths and all these things that we say in everyday life that aren't true, but we push them as true to hide the skeletons in our closet. So, and the funny thing is, when we wrote Dog, when Mark and myself sat down to develop Dog and to get it on paper, we started out with a very different story. And then one of the actors said to us, the old guy in this is quite creepy. And as a female, I would never, ever bond with this guy because he is so creepy. So Mark and myself went off and we were like, okay, let's use that and rewrite bits of it. And so we ended up with, we had initially, I think, called it Old Joe and the Girl or something silly like that. And by the time we got to the end of the rewrites, I had discovered this term, "Don't Sell Me a Dog." And I said it to Mark. I said, look, I think we're going to call it this. And when I explained to Mark what it meant, he was like, yeah, that's our film.
That's it. No, actually, let's stick to that for a second. Is that not the whole industry?
Oh, completely. Yeah. I'm going to get in lots of trouble now.
No. We want it because the only way we're going to get noticed is there's no point in being yes men or yes women or yes persons or whoever the fuck it is. It's we had this conversation before. Like everyone's saying yes, we need to be saying no. And say yes to the right thing and no to what doesn't work, and don't be feeding people's egos and promising, oh, we'll be back to you. We'll never, when? Well, there's no date on that. It's open. There's an awful lot of encouragement with no end times and dates of, go off and you write that script and you do that. And sure, we'll look at it then. And then you're going, you've done all the work. And then they go, no, it's not. We're not interested in that. So there's risk and reward passing back between different people where they'll take the reward when you pitch it to them if they recognize it as being they can make something out of it. But they'll keep on pushing the risk back. It's all your risk till there's a reward that they can recognize. There's a little bit more sharing needs to go on, in my opinion, in the industry of risk-reward relationship, so we can get more stuff done or financed. But at the same time, there's a lot more winners than losers. There's too many people in these too many queues, like 300 writers pitching for funding for a short. Three people might get it. 297 don't even get a PFO. They don't even get an email. They don't even get, where am I? Was I close? Yeah. So there's an industry that we're courting at the moment, which is it's the disenfranchised. It's the ones further down the queue a little bit, which are quality. They're just maybe 5 people away. The door closed, but they were near enough to the top of the queue. But the queue then restarts the following year. And you don't know where you are again. You're not back in the same position. So you've got to rejoin a queue for the same thing again with a different story or the same story and go reinvent the wheel a second, third, fourth time every year till you get your turn, and you may never get your turn. And the great thing about yourself was you can't wait for that anymore. You said it to me a number of times. You've just got to start doing it. Yeah. It might be shoestring, but you can't be waiting around anymore.
Yeah, did you work out a budget for the script fairly quickly, or what was the score? No,
I even for the next film that we're in pre-production on, budget is the last thing. I'm sorry, Gar. Budget is the last thing I think about.
Right. I'm not going to say anything.
And the reason I do that, right? If you sit down and start thinking about budget when you start writing your script, all you're going to write is 2 guys in a room talking to one another.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I budget doesn't come into it. And what I said to Mark about Don't Sell Me a Dog was, I said, right, Mark, this is what we have. We have a car and we have access to actors. So write me a film with a car and 4 actors. And that's all.
I'm going to fire you, Pauric, because the thing is, you said had you no car, no house, no room, no friends. See, the strange thing is you're coming from you're putting you have 2 hats on. You're going, I am the creative, I'm writing. There's no budget. But had you been you in your day job, you're going, don't ring me unless you have your budget, because this is my day job. So you're actually a split personality here, which is the great thing of what we're coming across is the last number of people we've been speaking to have moved out of the silo of the one role, and they've wanted now to be actually have a movie made, be it small, be it big, be it otherwise. And they now understand they've actually all moved into writing because they're coming more from the film business side of things going, I know what's going to take to make this. I know what skill sets we have. Now we got to write it to fit. You just said in the sentence, we're writing it to fit what we have. So there's an element of creativity, but not. You are very aware of what you're writing and the effect that it will have on lack of budget. If that makes sense.
And my tagline is making movies with what I have.
Yes.
You know,
That's great.
anyone that follows me on social media will see that. And look, I think we've all, as filmmakers, we've all got stuck in this dream of having 6, 7, 8, 9 million to make a film. Unless you have a product to show people, you're not going to make squat tiddly. Yeah. So you got to get off your bum. I did an acting course years and years ago, and the school's motto was "Don't dare to dream." Right. So I took that and I was like, "Get off your arse and do it. Don't mind your dare to dream." You know. Don't
be wishy-washy. Don't be dreaming it. You got to be act. Yeah. The very first one of our shows was action is act.
Yeah.
It's due.
I'm going back to what we were saying. So, I told Mark, I said, Mark, we have a car, we have actors. Write me a story. We come up with our story. And we've kind of done that with the next film as well. But with Dog, as you said, if I didn't have a car, how would I have done it? It would have been 4 people out camping who came across these 2 drug dealers. Yeah. So I would have found a way to do it. And I think as a filmmaker, and even the producer hat and all that side over there, as a creative, if I want to make something, I'll find a way. I knocked an actor down 4 or 5 years ago on a short film with no stuntman or anything. I found a way to do it. Do you know what I mean? So I think if you're going to make something and if you want a product to show people, then you got to be creative, because apparently that's what we are. So you got to look at ways, well, what can I do? And then I had a conversation with a new filmmaker recently, and they were complaining about not having equipment. And I said, "You're talking to me on a smartphone. There's a good camera on it. Now all you need is a microphone. Go make your film." Yep. I don't think we look at it like that here. I think we're caught up in having the best equipment, having the most money, having this actor, having this. Look, while if you look at the independent scene in the States, they don't care about any of that. They make their movies with what they have, and they sell their movies.
Yeah. I remember on one of the films that we were doing, we needed a track and dolly system, and one of the actors was going off to do a gig somewhere, so we couldn't shoot one weekend. So that weekend I went down to B&Q, bought a whole load of 32mm tubing and got a couple of old skateboards and butchered them and stuck them together. And there I had my a 36-foot track and dolly system, which he managed to use in that little film. So we were being creative. I think the other thing is that now, you do have to generate an income for yourself, but the other side of it is if you wait too long, the years will go past very quickly, and you need to keep doing something to keep alive. And even if one thing doesn't work, then keep on doing another, because you can still put your time. Like I said, my son has put time into converting a motorbike, and that's his passion. So it doesn't cost him. It costs him a little bit, but he's generating the income to do that. And I think, filmmakers are doing the same thing. Their custom bike is their movie that they're making in some form or fashion, and they want to be able to do something with it, just get it out there to an audience. And it's trying to get that reality of how to mix it with the industry. And you're right, most filmmakers are never going to get big budgets to make the movies. They will after they've shown their worth and made something and demonstrated it and managed to get it out there and get an audience for it, but not until that happens. So you are kind of having to invest in yourself to achieve those kind of goals. So I remember not so long ago, probably in the last year, we had a conversation. You were talking about a car hull that you had where you could either put a screen, we're using green screen today, but you were actually going to do projection. Did you use any of those techniques in the film?
We did experiment with it, and we set it all up in a garage that we had. And we ran tests and that. I wasn't overly happy with it. I think our projectors weren't strong enough. We needed brighter projection, but it did work. And there's some pictures of that. And I think there might even be a clip up on YouTube of some of the tests we did. And again, quite simple to do. I bought those projectors on eBay. I think they were 25 or 30 quid each. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
it worked. And I probably will use it at some stage just to make some sort of a stylized picture and just to have fun with a film and, you know, and do it. But again, look, what you were saying there about time going by, I've done that. Like this is, Don't Tell Me a Dog is my fourth attempt at making a feature film.
yeah.
Actually, the last time I was speaking to you, Pauric, you had no beard. So, I mean, the actual time that's gone by, Father Time has been visiting you, and it's like you can see you're aging by the minute. Even just putting up with us on this show, you're growing old listening to this shit. But no, what I love about the fact is, now I'm lazy. My day is broken into, you know, maybe work somewhere in the 9 to 5 arena after 16 cups of coffee, 5-10 minutes of work, and then the evenings for relaxing from the work I may have done during the day. But I'm back to back Netflix. I'm watching Netflix. You're making Netflix while I'm watching Netflix. You know, the great thing is the creatives are, you know, I think I've no time. There's 4 hours a day in the evening that I could be working on film or doing something to do with it. But not as more work, but as you said, as a creative or as coming up with a new project or making those relationships that you're getting those people together. Or if you're just walking the grounds and going, I've got a, you know, ride on lawnmower, and I've got this and I've got the other, and we can do a Forrest Gump with this piece over here. I admit the first 10 minutes of what I saw of the show, you know, I'm now looking at it with my artist's eye of, as you said, the accountant is going budget, you have no money because you've no money, and I'm looking, going, he's walking from the garage, I think he was getting petrol, you know, and like so someone will obviously press play or record, and then you were in the very, very beginning. You were in an old fashioned pub. Every pub in this town, you didn't dress that pub up to look like that. To throw it back to the 1970s, they looked like that here. So, I mean, all you had to do was go into a country pub and go, gee, the Americans will love it. He must have spent a fortune. No, you went to the bottom of the road, you ordered 30 quid of petrol, and you went into the pub for a pint and asked the guy behind you to start recording, and you had a conversation. It's atmospheric. It's brilliant. It looks as if you actually set up the whole damn thing.
We managed to do that in Fiddler's Walk as well, because in Fiddler's Walk, we got an exterior pub. The guy had a house that was set up as a pub, so he wasn't using it, and we were able to go in there, film it, and all the upstairs was some location 4 miles away, so we can create the illusion of this big building out of 3 or 4 buildings that we were given to us, and it didn't cost us anything.
And that's the thing, like that garage in that opening scene is half a mile down the road from me, and I just went in and said it to him. And it's funny, it's I have shot other stuff there before that they've recently refurbed it and renovated it, but I just walked in and said, you know, I want to shoot a film outside. We won't get in the way of customers. You know, and I explained what the scene was, and they were like, yeah, just as long as you give us a credit on the film. The same with the pub. That's owned by a guy here in Carlow. He's an optician, Bernard Jennings. It's a private club that he runs, I think, twice a month for musicians and artists to go in and do stuff. And again, as you said, we did absolutely nothing with that pub. It's done. It was fantastic. But that's the thing. I think a lot of filmmakers think when they go to a location that the location is going to go, well, you know, how much money are you going to give us? Whereas if you go in and explain the whole process to them and say, look, there's going to be a crew of 1, as there was on Dog myself. There's going to be 3 cast members, and we're going to be here for an entire day, but we only want to use that section there, you know, and work away. They don't mind. I did a science fiction film back in 2011, I think it was, and we shut down half of a shopping centre during the day to shoot it. The cafe in the shopping centre said to me afterwards, that is our best day ever, profit-wise. Because people were coming in, sitting down, having a coffee, watching us. We were doing stunts that day where we sent one girl way up in the rafters of the shopping centre, and we pulled another guy off a set of steps backwards. So they were in there, they were drinking coffee, watching us setting it up. They were seeing how the movies are made. They were seeing professional stunt guys. cafe owner was delighted. Super quick. We went in.
Well, that's back to what's it, Enchanted up there now in Enniskerry.
Yeah.
It's a tourist attract. Enniskerry was okay. Sure, they got dressed up and every building was painted and every hotel was booked for about a month or two beforehand. But in the meantime, everyone in this country that had a kid was on a tourist bus Sunday afternoon, jaunt up to Enchanted. It is a tourist attraction. As you said, if you saw a camera across the road in any town, village, or city, you cannot help. It's a magnet. They'll just the head will jerk and they will look, or they will stop or slow down or take a photograph or a bit of social media of themselves, and they'll see if they can see a star or something. It's an industry, and it also has a tourism attraction effect wherever it is. So that's the great thing about in Ireland now. If we start making, actually every little local regional county council wants to draw you to their region under two headings, that film tourism dollar and the actual, the local team and local crew will please use ours as opposed to someone else's. But you have that power to go do and decide where. And literally it's a card. You get in the car and you can drive and you can find there's 200 locations on your doorstep that you can call your own holiday during the summer and have, by the end of it, have a film. We did that with Filler's Walk, because again, we toured around the mountains of Mourne. We stopped in Kilkeel and we asked if we could use a little restaurant, and there were buses of Americans piling in. So all we had to do was ADR afterwards and use what we had as a guide track, and it worked. And the same thing happened again with another little film, Montes Crest, where we needed a little restaurant in Newry. But we have had a situation where we asked someone that had a big warehouse if we could just use a corner of it for a disability film, and they wanted to charge us $3,000 a day, and we went nope. So we managed to find a little village hall that was happy enough, and we set up green screen. We shot it there instead. Didn't cost a penny. So there's the givers and takers, George. You don't realize absolutely. One bunch are seeing it, you owe me, and the others are going, geez, this is great. I'll get the kids. Can we be in the background waving? It's.
And that's it. It's just a matter of opening your mouth and using your words, as I said.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just go ask. All they can say is no.
So you're on your next one now. That's the thing. We had a chat beforehand, and it was, don't sell me a dog was X. But now you have a couple of people you were courting over the last while that believe this is a common theme with an awful lot of people. Look, you've done your proof of pudding. You're in the industry. You have your skill set. You're moving into a couple of different roles, which is from writer, producer, director, on top of being multi-cameraman. Actually, you even chucked in this sentence that you were actually doing acting before. So I was quite, are you in this movie, more to the point? Because I haven't got that far in yet. Are you in there too?
No, my days in front of camera are limited to interviews.
No, I think you have that face, or maybe you don't have that face. That's why you have that beard. We don't know, but you're definitely, like, when we put this one out, you're going, no, that's a character. There should be. Yes. You are a caricature. You're a caricature of yourself, and I think I'm a caricature. Actually, George is doing Muppets and Fraggles and puppets of me left, right, and centre in the background. Yeah. I think we need to be characters of ourselves. There's no more. You're not getting clean shaven and putting a suit on from now till the day you die to go get a job. This is it. This is you.
Yeah, and just to pick up on what you were hinting at there, when about 2 years ago, myself and Mark pitched another film to investors, because I know that's where you were going. You can see I love talking about myself. So we went talking to these investors, and the big thing we got was, what have you done, and how are you going to get bums on seats? And that you can understand why they're protecting their investment. They want to see an ROI, right? That's the producer side of things. So when we started that, like, we have two other good scripts there that have got attention from people, but it's always come back to, what have you done? Where's the bums on seats coming from? So, and that led to Dog. The beginning of the first lockdown, I think I was at the point where it was, I'm going to get a job. I'm going to give up this because it's only a hobby. It's never going to pay for itself. And I can't remember, to use a film term, I can't remember what the inciting incident was, but I said to Mark, write the script for Dog. We went through everything and we wrote it. We made it and edited and got it there. But while I was doing that, I remembered being with a production company at a meeting with the film board a few years ago for, I think it was the media funding, the European media.
Yes,
thing.
yeah.
And I remember the film board said to us that day, when you get out of here, you have to remember one thing, keep on hustling. That stuck with me. So I was like, right, so we're doing Dog. So I started approaching distributors, sales agents, and as far as I was concerned, I was selling a Hollywood production, even though I knew it wasn't or anywhere close to it. And we got interest and we got them talking and blagged our way through it and we got interest.
You were selling dogs and puppies left, right, and centre by the sounds of it.
We were, and we got interest from distributors, right? A lot of blagging, a lot of the Irish blagging went on. And we got a couple of offers, but I wasn't happy with any of them, so I decided with self-distribution. That's a lot of work on its own. But from that, going back to what we started with, from that, someone that had been around my films a lot over the last few years, I pitched them the idea for the next film and they went, yeah, grand, and put their hand in their pocket. So by having that product, I now had something that I could go, well, we've done this, have a look at it, see what you think. Bear in mind, I had no money. I was it. I was trying to do everything, record sound, record picture, look after continuity, look after costume, look after special effects, look after the rigging of the camera on the car, making sure the cast were safe, making sure they were fed, everything. So they looked at it, they enjoyed it, they went, right, grand, let's do this. What's your next film? What's your plan? They liked it, and that's where that came from.
You were going out there with a minimum viable product. I think we did a course together way back in the past.
Yeah.
Now, minimum viable MVP is also known as the minimum value proposition. So when you start going, I've got the product, but now what's the value of the product in terms of if we get it out there, you're immediately talking their language of bums on. Sorry, the value proposition of that viable product is you can get the value out of it, and that's a bum on seat. And you're going to get your money back, break even, or do it again. So even in that sentence, the minimum viable product, this was the budget to get the minimum viable product, so it can have a minimum value, so I can get a bum on seat, so I can do it again, or I can pitch bigger. So you are beautifully wrapped in the language of Business 101. And you understood if I don't make it and it doesn't get seen, then the whole thing self-implodes. You know, and therefore we want to do it again. We don't not only want to do it again, we want to do it the way it was meant to be done in the first place, which is bigger and right, with actually budget and money and getting lots of bums on seats. So we always have this great intent. But even at the beginning of this sentence, it was someone else's money. Because if we don't have it and we're not putting it in, it can't be bigger without this someone else's money scenario. And all they're interested in is bums on seats.
Yes. And like, it's great. Someone gives you a wad of cash, right? And you make your product. But then you got to think about that whole back end. How the hell am I going to give them back their money?
Yes.
And how am I going to give them back that agreed percentage on top of their money? So, and I think we spoke about this before, Garvin. There's not a lot of people telling filmmakers how to do that. So you've got to learn it. You've got to look at it and you've got to go, well, how do I sell it? How do I generate it? Now, Dog is a big, huge, massive experiment for me.
Yeah.
So we have Dog out now. It's on Vimeo, it's on Plex, and it'll be coming to other platforms hopefully in the near future. But I have literally, and pardon the language, but I know you don't mind, I have hoard Dog everywhere. People are fed up, I'd say, looking at Dog at this.
So that dog is a bit of a bitch, is she now?
Yes, she is. She's well out there, well open for business, as they say. So The biggest coup we've had today with Dog, and it's only been on the market for 3 weeks, is it's now on the most popular selection on Plex. That in itself is a huge selling point for any investor.
Future.
Because it has that perception that, well, it's almost popular. People are obviously watching it. This guy is getting an income from it. So, yeah, give him a few quid. We have a fair chance of getting it back. But to get it to that point, we've had to spend countless hours sending it out to get reviews, sending it out to people to get them to review it on IMDb. We got onto the newspapers. We have a whole page in the local newspaper today about the film and how it was made and whatnot. So there's this whole marketing end of stuff that we have to do to get it.
I'm hearing brilliant stuff here, Pauric, because that was the one bit that we weren't hearing from others throughout my interaction with the industry was, you're talking to production companies, they were saying, we're production, we're operations, we're not sales or marketing. Oh, distribution is the agent. Oh, there's no budget for that because we got the budget for production. And, and so therefore, if we're raising funds, it could be $1 million for production. It might be $500,000 for marketing, because marketing is not sales and distribution. Marketing is marketing. And marketing now is social. They're not even the same thing. We're going, oh, I'm a social media expert. Oh, I'm a Twitter expert. You're an Instagram one. Oh, I'm pay-per-click. You're SEO. And these aren't the same people. And there's an awful lot of people out there goes, oh, give me your marketing budget, which is, let's say, here's $100,000. And they're going off using pay-per-click. You go, I can spend $100,000 on pay-per-click myself. Thank you very much. It's not very difficult to do that. That's not actually getting anything organically growing a customer base and attracting it. That's spending money on Facebook ads. That
brings me back to why we didn't take any of the distribution deals we were offered. Because this is another thing that people don't tell you about. These sales agents and distributors put marketing caps and expenses into their budget. So, like, let's say our film costs $10,000 to make. Some of these guys were saying to us, we're going to have expenses and marketing of $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. And I'm looking at them and I'm going, but hold on, that now means that this film has to make over $100,000 for me to start seeing any money back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, and I've spoke to loads of filmmakers in the States that have had really bad experiences with distributors. Oh yeah, they took our film. No one told us about this marketing cap of 120,000. We spent 20 grand on the film and we haven't seen a penny. But now they own the film for the next 15 years.
Yes.
Yeah. And I actually saw a distribution agreement a few years back, which was being offered for Fiddler's Walk. And the problem was there was 50% fees out of what was earned, and the other expenses came out the other 50%. So you found that you could never actually get any money back at all. And that's because we've heard the Blair Witch being talked about quite a few times, which made 14,000 times, 100 times it's the normal kind of thing. But that's the blip that shouldn't actually be there. So what have you found yourself doing to try and, you're now taking on that distributor's role? So you're the producer, but now you're becoming the distributor. So how are you managing that side of it, and how is it affecting the rest of your filmmaking?
So we've put Don't Sell Me a Dog and Crafty Irish, the documentary we made. They're with a company called Filmo, and they're a marketplace. So you'll have all these VOD platforms coming to them and looking. They'll get a list with 20 films on it maybe every week, and they'll look at it and say, okay, that kind of suits our platform. So what you do then, once you see it going on a platform, so we'll use Plex because that's where we are at the moment. The minute I saw Plex had taken that, every day I checked Plex to see was it gone live. The minute it went live, I grabbed that URL and it went everywhere. I put it up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, you name it, it was up on there. Job done, I wish. So then we had to start driving traffic to those posts. So everything that I do, at the moment is in the morning I get up, I check all the social media platforms, see if I have likes. If I have likes, I'll say thanks or respond to them in some way. And then I'll put out a new post. Oh, look at this. And we did one recently with Mark, the writer, and a quote from a review saying he wrote it in 2 months and it's a great crime yarn. So I put a picture up with him, made it look nice, blah, blah, put it out, and we promote it and put it forward. So you're constantly doing that in the background.
Yeah.
While I'm developing.
Pauric, this is brilliant. Well, as I said, I'm an old man. Well, my kids say it. You're just an old bald bloke. You know, like, when are you retiring, or actually when are you starting? But I was an accountant. George was production. You were production. Now the three of us are going, how's my Instagram account doing here now? And should we be TikToking? My children are going, if I feckin' see you on TikTok, that's the end of it. I won't be able to go down the road. This is the 18-year-olds and 16-year-olds. And I'm going, I've got a TikTok account, but we haven't gone live with it yet. But
we haven't done anything.
This is where suddenly you're going, yes, if we can just become a little bit more of an expert, and we're the wrong people, again, we're doing it ourselves because there is no other staff member. There is no budget for some other staff member. Therefore, the tools are there. There's training sort of videos up, left, right, and center. We may not have broke the algorithm on YouTube, but by God, there are tools to the planet that if we have content, in your case, we've got unique content, that if you start putting it out and we just hit the right connection or something, we have a better chance than you've ever had in the last 2 millennia to break that, get to the end audience. And now you're going, you said it in the beginning of that sentence, we're about to circumvent sales and distribution. That's fine for the big boys. But when they're asking for 50% and you spend 10 million, the more you spent, the less they're probably asking for. But that's because the more power you probably have behind you in terms of, named actors and this, that, and the other. But the little guy is being milked to death, took the highest risk. His investor took the highest risk, and they're removing any chance of you getting it back. And even the actual Netflixes and Amazons are now giving you a couple of $100,000, maybe buy you out, lock you out of every territory on the planet because that's their customer base. So it really does say you can get, if you keep it this low, not low, maybe a couple of $100,000, and you have this route to market and you learn those tricks of trade and social media, then the weird thing is you've got the best chance on the planet of actually getting that money back by becoming the distributor and having your marketing down and getting that route to market of your own audience.
Can I just ask a question there? Because I think something that's coming out of what Garvin's talking about is, and it's sort of appealing to me at this point, is how do you minimize the risk to what you're doing yourself? Because at the end of the day, we generate an income so we can live, but we also want to do something we enjoy. And one of the things I found was I wanted to make the films, but I had to get a job to pay the mortgage. And I had to do things, and it's trying to balance that. How do you minimize your risk to the life that you need to keep on doing just to get by through the techniques you're using for filmmaking, but also for distribution purposes?
Good time management. Yeah. Look, I do corporate videos as well, and I do a bit of social media for different companies around. But I knew I was going to shoot down during the lockdown. So I blocked out my 8 days, and I said, right, these 8 days, you're not going to get me. So, don't even bother ringing me. And I let my few clients know. I'd say, look, guys, those 8 days, I'm gone. So how you can't, with the film, I can't minimize the risk because you don't know what's going to happen with it. It could be a flop, and it could be a smash. So what I do is, I basically try and block out what I'm going to do. So at the minute, I'm very quiet in the corporate sector. There's not a whole lot happening. So I know my next film now, I can block off. I think we have scheduled 10 days to shoot the next one, which is 2 days more. Yeah. Thanks for a budget.
Yeah. And how did you find doing that? Because I mean, really because one of the things that I found was that I shot two features. I've shot a documentary, and the risk that it was the same with all the cast and crew. A lot of them came to me and we said, look, as long as it's not affecting your income working on this, we will block you in. And they were quite happy because it didn't affect them going off. In fact, in the making of film, we had one of the main actresses who's now a big name, Noir, basically sort of ringing a boss and saying, I'm going to be about half an hour late. They're about to finish in about 10 minutes. Isn't that right, George? Well, maybe an hour and a half. No, half an hour, and I'll be on the road because I've got the keys to the restaurant. And if you can't open the restaurant up, so we had to get her there. So, it's those kind of things, just saying, right, okay, we'll get this done, and then you go, but be careful, because she'd already had a problem with the police coming down and sort of ended up hurting herself somehow. But those are the things that I was kind of looking at, because really, once we'd minimized that risk, people were willing to help because they knew it wasn't going to affect them financially. They knew it wasn't going to affect them in any other way. And we made it, if you like, safe for them to actually work on this project. And those are the kind of things I'm kind of, because you're talking about the same kind of language, really. You're trying to make it safe so that environment, you can be creative, but you know that it's really going to be minimal cost as much as possible, so that your investors don't have to put so much money in it, or you're the main investors in that case. And it's kind of recognizing that idea. Is that something similar to what you'd think about?
Yeah. So with Dog, what we agreed with the cast was a fee for the project.
Yeah.
And I explained exactly our initial plan with Dog was to shoot everything straight through the windscreen of the car and not move the camera at all. So it would have been like a little chamber piece. And any action that happened outside the car would happen at the back of it or just off screen, and we'd just hear dialogue. That was our initial plan. So because I knew I was shooting them myself, I had scheduled it in a way that I could do it in the 8 days. And the only reason I knew I could do it that way was because I was never going to put the camera down. It was going to be on the shoulder from start to finish, or it was going to be on the bonnet of the car from start to finish. Now, I gave the cast a monumental task in that our initial idea was, right, let's do this as a one-take movie over the 8 days, from start to finish, every day, until we get that.
No toilet breaks. You're going nowhere. We're locking into that car. It's like the American competitions. You stayed in the car. If you got out, you lost the car. If you stay in long enough, you win it. So you pretty much go, if you leave this car, you're out of the film. But we're not moving.
So was it 16-hour day types?
No, I kept it to a 12-hour, 7 to 7. Same as
7 to 7. Okay. Yeah.
Now, and in saying that, there were very lackadaisy 7 to 7 day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? One thing I like to do on my sets is I like to make it fun. So we're always having a bit of a laugh. It's always really relaxed. There's never pressure on anyone to perform. It has to be a really, really safe, friendly, fun environment, because if it's not, you're dead in the water as it is. And I worked on a couple of sets, one in particular where the director was a complete and utter a-hole and no one enjoyed the experience.
That's it. I mean, my lead actress on Fiddler's Walk, she enjoyed the process so much, but she went on to a horror movie afterwards, and they were working crazy hours, and she screamed at the producer because they hadn't organized they hadn't made a safe environment. There was expectations to it. So I kind of love what you're talking about, because you are talking about that risk-free environment to make sure that people do feel safe. And once they feel safe, they end up giving more. I think they give they enjoy the process, so they become more natural, and you can end up getting a lot out of them, which I think is really quite good. But I think, what I'm loving about the conversation is because it's inspiring me. I mean, we had a conversation with somebody else recently, and he was saying, your commitment to your crew is to make sure that you deliver what you promised, which is the end film. And one of the problems I've got is I've worked on a film for 12 years now, which is really tough. Right? I haven't actually looked at it for a year and a half. And one of the problems I've got in the editing is it's all gone out of sync. So I've got to rework it again. And I got it fairly close to finishing. But again, this was one of the issues of trying to do everything yourself. Nobody could come on board to do some of the back end stuff. I still had to do that. And I still feel there's a commitment to make sure the film is there. It's not the best of movies, but I think I can turn it into something. So I'm going to try and spend a little bit of time, find a few hours to get it finished,
And that's key to it, George, because what you now are doing is you're following out on that commitment. All right, it might be taking 12 years, but that cast and that crew are going to have that product by the end of it. And that's something I was very conscious of with Dog, because a couple of years ago, we had another film that we made. We had, I think it was about 15 minutes left to shoot, the end sequence to shoot. And one of our main cast refused to come back, walked away from the project because they were out of pocket. Now, I learned a very, very valuable lesson on that.
Yes.
No matter what you do, even right, Dog, we say Dog had no budget. It did have a very small budget where everyone was compensated for time. But that was because I didn't want anyone to walk away from it. And I wanted to make sure that we got to the end of it. So on that other project, we had spent, God, I think we had spent about the best part of 3.5 weeks shooting it. And we did that in a way. It was, George, are you free Friday night? Yes, I'm free Friday night.
Yes, yeah.
Right, let's get a couple of things done. And that's how we did it. And like we had a good little film.
Yes.
Coming together. And if we had shot the end of it and got that last 15 minutes, we would have had a good little first feature film to get out there. We would have learned a hell of a lot from it. And we'd probably be having a different conversation today.
Right.
But being very conscious of that on Dog meant that the cast were super well looked after, or at least I hope they felt they were looked after.
Yeah.
We sorted accommodation for them so they didn't have to travel back and forth to Dublin. We made sure they were well fed. They had everything they wanted. If they were tired on set, they were told, all right, take a break. There's no panic. We'll get it done as we get it done. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's very important.
That's what happened with the movie that I'm still working on, because I am still passionate about it. My dad died in the middle of it. Okay, in the middle of the editing of it. I remember working on some of the animation as my dad was sort of, ill, and I was sort of there looking after him. And it kind of kept me going. And then when he did die, I was doing lots of animation. I put too much into the special effects side of it. But what I found was that when I showed it to some of the youngsters, 18-year-olds, they actually liked it. Although it wasn't Hollywood, it still was enough to capture their imagination, and it still had some kind of meaning. So I'm kind of want to get back to make it finished, but I don't want it to get in the way of other productions that we're trying to get going. Because I do think that based on the experiences that we've had throughout, we are trying to develop the Film Production Academy so that we can have these films and can set it to a certain budget level, but also want to make sure that we go through a process, a pre-production process, to make sure that we can create an environment that's safe, that we know that we can manage the budget for the day and have professionals working with us, but also slow that down. So we're going to have something like, we're going to have 10 weeks of filming, which is probably more than what most people have, but it gives us that scope to do a little bit of something and get some nice professional shots coming in or whatever. But also I like the idea that you were talking about. Sometimes the kind of guerrilla filmmaking is really quite exciting. Getting out there with the camera and just shooting something and then editing together to make a story as part of the sequence is so important.
You have that whole genre of improv films. I think the latest incarnation of it is folk filmmaking, where they literally just go out and they say, right, this is a story about A, B, and C. Yeah. And they just run with it until they have it made. And then they cut it all together. And there's one guy on YouTube, Dan Lotz, very interesting guy. He's after releasing 4 or 5 of these improv films on YouTube for free. Right. And they're doing really, really well. Yes. And now I've looked at one of them, Chlorine, I think it was called. It's about a hitman. Fantastic film. And he made it by himself as well. But then you have the other side of the coin. You have Cosmos, which is an independent production as well. Took 5 years for the Weaver brothers to make. And it was just 2 brothers and 3 friends. Yeah. And they made it. Their mum even helped out as crew on that film. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it always baffles me why so many filmmakers are, I can't make my film because I don't have this and I don't have that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes waiting, like George Lucas waited to make his movies. And one of the things that I mean, one of the problems I was having was, what do I do about music? I tried to get some composers involved. It didn't quite happen. Well, I've now got Logic Pro on my Mac, and I've already started creating music. I've learned to play the violin and other kind of instruments recently. And I'm kind of going, right, I can now create an orchestra and have that playing in my movie. And because I've learned a few chords, I can just do stuff that would populate the film and get it to the point where I can finish. Not only that, I've suddenly started to discover there's a crowd scene in my movie, and the characters could almost be animated, but I've shot live actions where I had the track and dolly. But I can now use some of the Adobe products to create. I can create a character in Blender, have him sort of like a T shape, and I can get all the movements, because I've done it with Garvin. So in one of our little promos, we had Garvin doing a somersault. I can now use that facility to get these characters to walk, put them in, and actually sort of move the cameras to match the camera of the live action stuff to create like a crowd. So I'm kind of going, that's exciting. And I'll do that at some point to make that happen, because I do want to make, I don't know what will happen to the film. It was shot 1440 by 1080. It wasn't shot the normal 1920, but I'll still make it and get it done and get it out there, even if it's on YouTube, just so they can see that there's your movie. We did get it finished. Sorry it took so long, but we're also moving into other productions. So if I can get that done in the next year, I'll be quite happy. Before I'm 60, that'd be fantastic, just to see what happens. But it is fascinating to have an opportunity to talk to somebody about the film and about their process, because we're gleaning so much to help us with our modeling of our film production academy. But are there other things that you've mentioned about that the filmmakers need to just have a go? Are there any other things that you would advise filmmakers to be thinking about the process of, how long is the process for you in writing your scripts, getting the shoot done, the editing, and then the distribution?
Right. So Doug, from the day we decided to start writing it to the day we finished editing it was exactly a year.
Yeah.
But what I've learned from Dog, now Dog will be with me forever and a day, because I will always be marketing it. And the same with Crafty. Like at the minute, it's saturation marketing, and just everything is going out for Dog, everything. But that will come to the point when we release our next movie. That next movie will be the saturation for the marketing that we'll do, but we'll still be pushing the other products as well.
Right. Yeah.
So how long is the process? Look, to be quite honest, what a lot of filmmakers don't realize is just because you start writing the script today doesn't mean you shouldn't start marketing it today and thinking about that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of filmmakers seem to be caught up in this idea that, great, I'm shooting a feature film. It's my first one. It's going to be brilliant. And I'm going to send it out to film festivals.
Yes. Yeah.
And this is where my producer hat comes on and goes, that's just an expense that will yield very little return on that investment. Right. Yeah. Now, I know we all pick out El Mariachi. We all pick out Paranormal. We all pick out Blair Witch. They're blips in the system.
Yes. And that's what I keep saying to people, don't go. I mean, even the stuff that I've studied about how, sort of doing the business plan for a film says don't use any of those movies because they're just anomalies. You've got to be realistic with what you're trying to do with the films. But it is an area where you learn so much in the production side of it, the post-production, trying to get all that side. And there's an equal amount that you need to learn to get distributing and marketing. And that's an area that I personally don't feel that I know a great deal.
You were asking me there about the process from start to finish. And as I was saying, we were pretty quick with Dogs, and we wrote it and edited it within a year. And then I started thinking about, well, how am I going to market it? How am I going to distribute it? What am I going to do with it? Now, I had a fair idea that I was going to go with Film Hub because I had experimented with the Crafty Irish on Film Hub and that worked out pretty well. Happy with it. But then I started looking, and I suppose I use our next film as an example. Like we're finishing the script at the moment, but I've already started marketing that to distributors and to sales agents without a completed script. So I'm just selling them the idea. But I've also started approaching cinema chains to see if I end up self-distributing this, can I get a limited theatrical run, even if it's only here in Ireland? Do you know what I mean? It's still it's better than nothing. So what I've been finding is there's very few film courses out there that are covering the back end of the process. So everyone knows how to shoot.
So, Pauric, you calling the back end the front end? The front end of any business is sales and marketing and distribution. The back end is production. Are you actually calling the front end the back end here?
Yeah, so I've reversed it here because everyone is familiar with production, with how to write a script, how to shoot a movie, how to post-production your movie. But everyone seems to think the holy grail of a finished movie is sending it out to film festivals. But that's as I was saying earlier, George, that's having the producers that's another expense that yields no return. Garvin will be delighted with that as the accountant.
I love this language. I have a trainee accountant in the mix. It's brilliant.
Right. But you see, and this is what I mean. No filmmaker is thinking about what do I do with my product once I have it.
Yeah.
We're looking at it. Hey, I finished the film. It's great. Send it out to film festivals. Someone will see it. Someone will offer me the big deal. Not going to happen. Blair Witch, Paranormal Activity, El Mariachi, all blips in the system. Forget about them. So what you got to do, we said it earlier, you got to have a brand, you got to have a product. And so what we've started to do with our next movie is it's a horror. So we know the genre. We know where to find the audience because horror is a very popular genre. So we're already mixing in groups of our horror film that we know the subject will appeal to. We've started talking about movies, not our movie, but we've started talking with these people about movies in this subject. And they're coming back with stuff like, oh, why is it always this way? And, we all think it should be this way. And so we're kind of molding our product to what the consumer is hoping to see.
Lovely.
Yeah,
there you go. You're listening to who's listening to Daryl. You can't talk to the million. So they're going, we've already spoken to them. We've already sent them previous stuff. What they've spoke back to us through viewership is we like horror. We will watch. We'll hang on for 20 minutes before we give up and give it a better chance. But if we hang on, we'll come back. We'll watch it again. So it has its audience and they're the route to it. And you're close. Listen to them and build with the audience in mind. And that's the great. You mentioned the word, and it would just resonate with me for a second. It was, filmmaker. If you're a filmmaker, you make the product. You didn't say film seller, film marketeer, You're getting closer because your whole persona is changing, and you've took on these other multi-hyphenates of. Actually, hold on a second. I'm the investor. Now I've got to work backwards. Well, I want an ROI from myself. I'll just talk to myself here, turn around and go, right, Pauric, as an investor in me, you, Pauric, I want you to tell me what you're going to do about marketing to get to the audience. Now, I know you can make it because I've already spoken to you earlier about making. You can sort that bit. I'm going to give you a very limited budget as an investor. But now, with the bums on seats in mind, us as marketeer, business entrepreneur, trust you as maker, but there's no point in making it if we don't sell it.
Yeah, one of the things that we're noticing through, again, talking to a number of people, is that quite often the producers or the filmmakers are sort of throwing their hands up and say, that's not my job. They go and they want somebody else to fix that problem. But until they get used to fixing the problems themselves, they're never really going to move forward with their particular productions.
But George, the interesting thing there was, as worker in the industry, you're right. It's not your job. It's not your job as cameraman to be working out pay-per-click and SEO and Instagram. But if you're entrepreneur, indie production producer, you're in the business of film, and there's no role you can leave out in the whole holistic business sphere unless you've got a budget for it and somebody else is doing it. That job exists and will always exist. And in the holistic, if no one's doing it, the whole thing falls asunder, and you don't get the end game to do it again.
And
I think the reality is that they have to be responsible for that part of the process, which they're actually neglecting, which I think is the issue. Sorry, Pauric, you were about to say something.
All right. There's a guy in the States, Alex Ferrara is his name, and he kind of phrased filmpreneur. And that's what you have to do.
You have it. I was trying to come up with it there, and I was going, filmmaker. I've gone through words in my mind. I actually nearly got it. I said film. I said film. I just didn't get rid of a couple of letters in between. It was a natural arrive at it.
Yeah, you have to be the scriptwriter. You have to be the director, the cameraman, the sound person. You got to be all these hats to get your product made. But then you've got to be the PR company. You've got to be the marketing guy. You've got to be the sales agent. You've got to be the distributor. So what that guy recommends you do is you niche down to an area that you can find.
Now you own it. You are in the middle of this show. You touched on the because we mentioned this other chap fellows. I don't have to remember his name. I'm going to have to look it up now one of these days. I keep on quoting a guy I can't remember his name. But Stephen Fellows. I'm hoping it's Stephen Fellows, but if it's not Stephen Fellows, there's some person that we're going to make up and call Stephen Fellows. And what he does is he researches the whole industry. We mentioned there was a bloodbath of genre bar chart there released a couple of weeks ago from his 20 years of knowing the industry and researching it. And horror, and we said this to Sean Bretnick, and we said we got it from Sean and Yolanda. Horror all day long knows its audience knows it. And zombie, it'll seek it out. It will find it. If you just put the word in there, they will find you. They will watch you. They'll give you the time of day, and they might even give you $1. And therefore, they're there. So if you're doing something all day long with the best chance, you've said it. It's a micro horror. It's as few moving parts as possible, and it's to get that frightability in the mind of the audience that they filled in the CGI, and we're in business.
Yeah. And I did that whole niche down thing with the Crafty Irish. It's about the craft brewing industry in Ireland, but I went so niche on that even people in the industry are like, God, that's a lot to take in. So we went too niche.
Right.
So what we're doing now with the horror movie is we found it. We know where our audience is. And we've looked at it. We've listened to them. And we've gone through the rigmarole. We're writing the script. It's nearly done. And as I was saying, I've already started approaching these distributors. I've told them what the movie is. I've approached cinema chains. LinkedIn is your best friend when you're looking for who runs what. Go do a bit of research. You'll find it. Reach out to them. We've done that with cinema chains. We haven't got a no, but we haven't got a yes. What we've got is, we'll look at it. We prefer to deal with distributors, but we have dealt with self-distributing filmmakers before.
Personalities can break through. The horses are all there on LinkedIn. But as I said, if they're there, you have 1 million people will try and their inboxes are full because they found their name. But they need to filter you back out. But therefore, if you're in this industry, the strange thing is you make a little bit of noise on Ireland, you're visible on the world stage and social media. The LinkedIn is not you're going to say hello, just connect. But then you can feed in. If you've got that connection, you don't sell. Your little bit of viability of your content and how you pitch it indirectly in front of them is what will grab their attention. That's the game now. Is you're doing it. You're on your social media channel. You like the LinkedIn. You're connected to the people you want to see it, but you're not advertising. You're going to just turn up in front of them. So when you do ask, they're already subliminally aware because you were in their timeline already, and you broke into it. And that's the game we're actually playing now, and that's what we're doing as well. And you're doing it in front of us every other day of the week, where we see your dog, we see your Crafty Irish, because we connected. But you're feeding our news feed with not you, but your stuff is standing out. It's grabbing attention, and you're not selling, but you are.
Yeah, and when you're reaching out to these people, this is a key thing that I learned from Clubhouse. you don't know, like, I'm not going to reach out to Garvin straight away because you're in the production academy. I'd say,
yeah, you've turned down my call 10 times now, Pauric. I can see that. I've got the message.
But I'm not going to reach out to you and go, Garvin, I have this fantastic movie. It's going to cost £1 million to make. Will you make it? Because I think you used to use the expression with me. You're just handing me a bloody bill, man. So what I do is I reach out and I will ask a question as opposed to saying, will you give me this or will you give me that? So when I reach out to cinema chains, for example, I say, hi guys, have you dealt with self-distributing filmmakers in the past? And if so, what's the process?
Yeah.
So I'm not asking for anything. I'm trying to bring value to what they're offering their customers by offering them a product. But again, going back to what we said, if you don't have a product, you can't offer them squat diddly. So you automatically become, again, to use Garvin's expression, a bill. And that's not what people want.
Anyway, folks, I'm going to come back in there. This has been a really, really fascinating show this week because, Pauric, you've actually gone through a good lot of the process of filmmaking, which I know a lot of people who are coming out, who want to be filmmakers, who are scared because they think there's so many different departments and they can only go through one. The context of what you've been saying, as soon as you go and come up with an idea for a film, you need to start marketing and researching where you can get that audience so that as you progress that project forward, you know that you're creating a product that is going to have an audience that will generate a revenue for your investor, basically. So I think that's fantastic. And really, if nothing else, if that's all the message that goes out today from today's show is think of your market as you're progressing your story through and developing your ideas before you go out and shoot. So you know that when you do go out and shoot, you are making a product that is an audience waiting for you, and you've probably generated enough interest for that audience, which I think is fantastic. So before we go, any last words you'd like to just say to kind of wrap up the show there, Pauric?
God, yeah, watch Don't Sell Me a Dog.
No, I was sitting here coming up with the last statement for myself going, and you just robbed half of it. But look, it's don't sell me a dog, don't sell me a pup, sell me a pedigree. And that'll do.
Brilliant. Well, thanks everybody for watching. See us every Friday, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Bye for now.
Thanks a lot. All the best. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and click on the bell for notifications.